You're easily replaceable. That's what HR said when they handed me the termination letter. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and desperation. I could hear keyboards clicking in the cubicles outside, people pretending not to notice another colleague disappearing. My manager avoided eye contact. My director scrolled through her phone. I gathered my things quietly, walked past the motivational posters about teamwork and excellence, and headed for the exit.
No argument, no tears.
I swiped my badge one last time and stepped into the December rain. 3 hours later, my phone rang and everything changed. Here's what happened next. The December rain was relentless that morning, the kind that soaks through expensive suits and cheap umbrellas equally. I'd worked at Morrison Tech for 6 years, climbing from junior analyst to senior project manager. The glass tower downtown had been my second home, complete with branded coffee mugs and team photos I'd never look at again. Today, they called it restructuring. I called it Tuesday. I'd driven in alone, replaying my performance review from last month. Exceeds expectations across the board. Key contributor to Q4 success.
That was all meaningless now.
Just numbers on a spreadsheet someone higher up had decided to erase. Growing up, my dad always said work hard and they'll take care of you. He'd spent 30 years at the same factory, gold watch and pension to prove it. I believed that story until today. Be reliable, show up early, stay late when needed. I'd done all of that and more. I'd saved 3 major client accounts, streamlined processes that saved the company millions, mentored junior staff who got promoted while I got, "We'll keep you in mind for next time." The last time I felt truly valued was 18 months ago. I remember the office smelling like pizza and celebration after we landed the Henderson contract. Everyone gathered in the break room, toasting with plastic cups and leftover champagne. My boss, David, had pulled me aside afterward.
This was all you, Sarah.
You made this happen. For once, I felt seen. Essential. That night, I went home thinking I'd finally found my place. I thought about that moment as I walked toward the conference room, heels clicking on polished floors. Through the glass walls, I saw them waiting. Linda from HR with her clipboard, David looking uncomfortable, and Director Patricia Chen checking her smartwatch. They looked like judges preparing for a sentencing. The coordinator, Linda, intercepted me with her practiced smile. "Sarah Martinez? Please have a seat." She gestured to the single chair facing 3 others, like an interview in reverse. Her polite demeanor shifted when she opened the folder with my name on it. "Due to company restructuring, your position has been eliminated." I laughed, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. Position eliminated. After 6 years. I followed her explanation about severance packages and COBRA benefits, but the words felt hollow. From my chair, I could see the entire office through the glass walls. My team working on projects I'd started. My desk still covered with family photos and coffee-stained reports. But there was a wall between us now, literal and corporate. I set my company laptop on the table and stared through the glass. Inside, Jennifer was presenting to clients. Mark was updating the dashboard I'd built. Outside, I sat in the artificial light and told myself the same lie I'd been telling for months. You're valued here. You're part of the team. But the truth was pressing against my chest, cold and final. Maybe I had value, but that didn't mean they saw it as irreplaceable. I tried to process the news professionally, like always, but the room wasn't quiet. Linda shuffled papers, David cleared his throat, Patricia's phone buzzed constantly. Every sound felt amplified. Through the glass, I caught glimpses of my coworkers pretending to work while watching the meeting from the corners of their eyes. Then David spoke up. He shifted in his chair, finally meeting my eyes with something that might have been guilt. "Sarah, I want you to know this wasn't performance-related. Your work has been." He paused, searching for words that wouldn't matter. "Exemplary." Patricia finished, not looking up from her phone. "But in today's market, we need to make strategic cuts." I blinked. Strategic cuts. Like I was overhead, not a human being who'd given them 6 years of 60-hour weeks. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. Linda smiled, that practiced HR smile I'd seen at 100 meetings. the one she used before delivering bad news wrapped in corporate speak. "You're easily replaceable," she said, tilting her head like she was explaining something obvious. "We can hire someone younger for half your salary." The words landed so casually, I almost missed how brutal they were. "You're easily replaceable." Like it was math. Like 6 years of dedication was a line item to be optimized. For a moment, I said nothing. My throat went dry, the kind of dryness that comes from swallowing your worth. Behind Linda, David was staring at his hands. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need you to understand this is a business decision." He didn't move. He wanted me to react, to beg, to prove their point about my expendability. I didn't. I just looked at him long enough for his shoulders to slump. "You know," I said quietly, "I've saved this company millions. You're the one who's shrinking the value." Linda's eyes narrowed. "Please don't make this personal, Sarah. This is simply business optimization." I let out a small laugh, the kind that sounds like air escaping from something deflated. "You're eliminating the person who landed your 3 biggest accounts this year. What exactly are you optimizing?" For a moment, the mask slipped on David's face. I saw a flicker of something, regret, maybe. Then he straightened, looking to Patricia for support. "You always make everything about you, Sarah. Maybe Linda's right. Maybe we need fresh perspectives." Fresh perspectives. The phrase hit harder than I wanted it to. I pictured all those late nights, all those weekends spent fixing problems they'd created. "I'm not making this about me," I said. "You just never liked that I see the numbers clearly." Patricia finally looked up from her phone. "You sound bitter, Sarah. Face it, in this industry, nobody's indispensable. Not here, not anywhere." She turned back to her screen, leaving a trail of dismissal and disdain. I watched her type, her manicured nails clicking against glass, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. But this time, it didn't hurt the same way. It burned cleaner. When the meeting ended, I gathered my personal items from my desk. The framed photo of my graduation, the coffee mug from the Henderson celebration, a small succulent I'd kept alive for 3 years. Linda hovered nearby with a security guard, making sure I didn't take anything proprietary. I slipped my company badge into the return envelope and traced its edge once. If they thought I was replaceable, fine. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Not this time. For a while, I just sat in my car in the parking garage, fingers pressed against the steering wheel, listening to the echo of conversations from the office above. It was supposed to be their big day, closing the Morrison deal I'd been working on for 8 months. I imagined David presenting my strategy, Patricia taking credit, Linda processing my replacement's paperwork. I started the engine slowly, my reflection caught in the rearview mirror, still composed, maybe even determined if you didn't look too closely. In my bag, the Henderson client contact list felt heavier than it should. I had memorized those numbers over 18 months of relationship building. It wasn't company property. It was earned trust. 3 weeks earlier, I'd had coffee with Marcus Henderson himself. A routine check-in had turned into a confession. "Your company's been great," he'd said, "but honestly, Sarah, we're working with you, not Morrison Tech. If you ever moved on, we'd seriously consider following." I hadn't planned to use that conversation until today. Before leaving the garage, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Marcus's direct number. The call connected on the second ring. "Sarah, how's the Morrison project coming along?" "Actually, Marcus, I need to tell you something. As of today, I'm no longer with Morrison Tech." There was a pause. "They let you go?" That's incredibly short-sighted of them." "I was thinking the same thing," I said. "But I'm curious. Remember what you said about working with me rather than the company?" "Absolutely. When can we talk?" I checked the time. It was barely noon. My former colleagues were probably eating lunch at their desks, unaware that their biggest client relationship had just walked out the door with me. How about now? The coffee shop downtown was warm and busy, the kind of place where million-dollar deals happen over lattes. Marcus arrived with his business partner, Elena, both looking more energized than I'd seen them in months. "Sarah," Marcus said, sliding into the booth across from me, "we've been hoping for this conversation for a while." I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Elena leaned forward. Morrison's been difficult lately. Unresponsive. But you've always been our advocate there. If you're starting your own consultancy, we'd love to be your first clients. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Where are you? Henderson's asking for you specifically. I smiled and turned the phone face down. Let's talk numbers. 2 hours later, I had a 6-figure contract and 3 referrals. My phone was buzzing constantly now, missed calls from Linda, from David, from Patricia. I didn't answer any of them. The quiet confidence felt better than explanations. When I got home, my apartment smelled faintly of vanilla candles and possibility. The city outside was settling into evening, office lights flickering on across downtown. I hung my blazer on the back of a chair and stared at it. The navy blue looked professional, untouched by the day's rejection. It looked like armor I was just learning to wear. A new voicemail appeared. Sarah, this is Patricia. We need to talk immediately about Henderson. Call me back. That was 3 hours too late. She always called when the damage was already done, when clients left, when projects failed, when the people she dismissed as replaceable proved otherwise. I deleted the message and opened my laptop instead. A business registration form blinked back at me, cursor waiting in the company name field. I typed Martinez Strategic Solutions and clicked submit. Before bed, I stepped out onto my balcony. The city air felt crisp and full of potential. Across the river, Morrison Tech's logo glowed from the 42nd floor. They could keep their severance package, their exit interviews, their corporate restructuring. I had something better now. At Morrison Tech, I was told I was easily replaceable. Tonight, I'm building something irreplaceable. Same skills, different value. Back then, it was their decision. Now it's mine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right somewhere else. They thought I'd always be available, grateful for whatever scraps they offered. But I don't wait for recognition anymore. I don't beg for a seat at someone else's conference table. I build my own. If you've ever been told you're replaceable by people who don't understand your worth, know this. Walking away isn't failure. It's the beginning of ownership. Tell me, have you ever had to leave a job to find your true value?